Is there a height requirement?
Um, I I would prefer a guy that's taller. I am pretty tall. Like
That's all I
five
need.
nine.
So if they're short, they need to be jacked, basically.
If they're short, then they should
Okay.
be working out. I think
Okay, cool,
everyone's
cool,
short.
cool.
You're tuned in to Kaz TV.
Hi, I'm
Where
Ina.
are you from?
You all. I'm from the Bay Area in San Francisco, Bay Area,
Cool.
California.
Nice. So
Yeah.
did you have a question, comment,
Yeah.
anything you wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
share?
Actually, I do have a question. So I for some reason, I don't know if it's just the area that I live in, but I have a really hard time with meeting men and meeting guys. And I'm like plugged into church and I have like a lot of social networks. And I also work in sports too. So I'm always around men, which should be a good thing. But for some reason, like I just don't get approached by the guys that I would like to be approached by. Um, and I think recently the Lord kind of showed me that I just need to smile more. And it was a interesting analogy. So I went fishing in Nashville. I just got back from Nashville to visit my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. And my in-law took me fishing and it was my first time fishing. And so he's all like, yeah, you just have to like wait and be patient. And then once the fish starts nibbling on the bait, then you want to wait a little bit more and then start yanking and then cranking in. And then I told him, I was like, oh, so my smile is the bait. And he just like, he kind of joked around with me because he's all like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have a guy? And I was like thinking like, I don't know what is wrong with me. And then I had to realize and reflect like, oh, it's because I look mean when I don't smile. And so I think that's why I don't get approached. Or, if I don't smile at a guy, then he probably thinks I'm not interested or I'm
Mm.
taken. So I just wanted to hear your reflection on that and any tips from the more experienced.
So if that's a question for me, a couple of things. May I ask your age? I'm 48, so I don't mind sharing. May I ask your age?
Yeah, I'm 35.
35. Have you ever been married? No, never married, no kids? Okay.
Yeah, none of that.
And how long ago was the latest relationship that you have that you would call a real relationship?
Ooh, probably 2 years
Okay.
ago.
So you said a lot there. I would agree that smiling is important, but smiling is a part of your overall approachability. That's There's so many things that have developed over time with humans. We have to be able to tell if the person approaching us is friend or foe. And especially if you work in a masculine environment, I do as well. I work in tech. And so it's data driven, it's corporate, it's competitive. I could have that as well, but I'm very intentional about softening because I don't want people to think I'm something that I'm not. I hear women all the time, oh, but when you get to know me, you're out of time. You don't have time because there's too much competition of women that are open and friendly. So that's a part of it. The reason I asked about the relationship is, have you ever gotten any feedback from either the men that you're dating or maybe a man that you were interested in as to what their impression was of you or maybe why it didn't work out?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I actually never thought about asking.
Yeah.
Um, but the impression that I did get is I actually never dated a Christian, and I
Okay.
feel like I was fishing in the wrong pool.
Okay. So if you want to be with a Christian, I would say, especially at our age, and I'm just going to say over 30 because we're mature women now, we're not young anymore. You have spent your years doing something, becoming a professional, getting a skill, whatever. So you should have a network of people, if it's not a romantic relationship, but people that know you, that know what you want, and you have to open up your mouth and say that. If whatever happened and I found myself single again, I would tell everybody that I know I'm single and I don't want to be. And I believe I have a lot of love to give, and I'm looking for this type of man. If you know anyone, please make an introduction. A lot of women sometimes just kind of like go through life thinking, well, he's going to come tap me on the head. Unfortunately for us, because of the modern dating environment, men have a lot of reason to take pause with women. They don't know if it's going to be some type of, shaming or embarrassment. They have a lot to lose on the line. So you have to really make yourself approachable. It could be, of course, your face, meaning like your expressions, but then the type of men that you want. Do you study them? Do you know them? Do you know what they're looking for in a wife if you want to be married? Are you surrounding yourself, learning from the other wives that have successful marriages? And I guess, that would be my thing. So yes, your approach, what feedback have you gotten and have you acted on it? And then your network. Over 30, I think you're out of the casual dating or the it's just going to happen. You have to date with intention and tell the people that you know, I am looking for a husband, or I want to be found by a husband. If you know anybody, please introduce me. That's what I would say.
Totally. And do you think it's like appropriate to even mention that in the workplace?
I met my ex-husband at work. It depends. And I know people hate that answer. I wouldn't lead with that. I wouldn't announce, hey, I'm single. But if you have a relationship with a trusted colleague, maybe you all, hang out after work, maybe it's risky, but, and then of course, it's kind of obvious if you have a church home. I don't know if they have a singles ministry. What I tell the ladies is, I would find every men's event and volunteer. They're having a pancake breakfast. I'm putting my apron on. I'm coming to decorate. I'm bringing snacks. I'm bringing table decorations.
That's a good idea.
Look like that lost lady. Like, y'all need anything? I'm refilling drinks. Like, I show up already doing the things that a wife would do. And so when they see me, they don't have to imagine, like, I wonder what kind of home she keeps. Like, I carry that with me everywhere. So I live out what I want to be in every space. So I would definitely do that. Check the churches in your area. Everybody's got a website. Go to their calendar, find the events, and offer help. Make yourself useful.
That's interesting that you say that, because you hear a lot of times in today's society, women, even Christian women, saying that, hey, don't give a man husband treatment, right? Or don't be like a wife until he makes you his wife, right? Like you hear that a lot, and it works both sides. Men say it too, but that's interesting that you said no. Like, come in those spaces and give that type of energy.
Absolutely. Right. You want to stand out.
You want to show you've got potential. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great advice.
That's good.
Let me ask you this. May I ask, you said you live in California, San Francisco, right? And
Yeah.
what type of guy are you looking for, if you don't mind me asking?
Ooh. I feel like he left. No, I'm just kidding. I'm looking for, well, obviously somebody who's like, Christ-centered.
Okay.
That's like obviously number one.
That one alone, you may need to leave California. I'm just saying.
Oh, I was like, what am I doing in California? I need to like go to Texas or Nashville or Tennessee or whatever.
Okay, so
I mean, pretty simple. Like, I feel like just because I didn't date Christian men before, it's like that's what I'm really looking for, because I dated people that were in the secular, like they were just not Christian at all.
So is there any sort of I guess like physical?
Yeah, what do you want outside of the Christian? Because just because he's a Christian don't mean he's
we're getting there.
Yeah,
Physical,
no, totally.
Physical,
I have a
physical
lot of Christian guy friends, and they're not like
right.
not
Right.
like Well, I
we're gonna go Kevin Samuel's checklist, but more of a Christian based version. We're not gonna go some of this extra stuff. But is there a height requirement?
um I I would prefer a guy that's taller. I am pretty tall. I'm like
That's all I
five
need.
nine, and I like wearing heels. But I have dated guys that are shorter,
Okay,
and I
cool.
think
So it's
what's
not a deal
important to
breaker.
me is like somebody who's really like they like the importance of health
Okay.
is their priority, like
So if
having
they're
a healthy
short,
lifestyle,
so if they're
hygiene.
short, they need to be jacked, basically.
If they're short, then they should
Okay.
be working out. I think
Okay.
everyone
Cool.
should
Cool.
work
Cool.
out.
Cool. Hey, look, I'm just getting an understanding so we can know what you're looking for, and then
Yeah.
she can give the best advice to probably point you in the right direction.
Honestly,
Um,
the ideal guy is obviously like 6 foot tall, taller than 6 foot,
okay.
healthy, physically fit, not too bad on the eyes, has a nice
Okay.
smile. I mean, obviously those are just the physical attributes. There's also his heart posture and his
Well, yeah, if
integrity,
he's
his
following Christ, that stuff should be taken care of. If he's
yeah,
really
for sure.
if he's really following Christ, that stuff should be taken care of. 6 foot. Is there in shape? Is there a financial requirement?
Honestly, I think because of my age, I would assume that they're already pretty established or working towards it. I think like if he's working towards his purpose, I don't really, the financial part of it isn't that much of a concern for me,
Okay.
because I know like if his heart posture is right, then he's going to want to lead and be a provider. So
So
that's not
so
necessarily,
is there
yeah.
a because I ask people this all the time, okay? He's a Christ follower, he's on his purpose, and his purpose, he's like a John the Baptist. He's out there like, hey, maybe we've got a 1 bedroom place, but this is my purpose. He's providing a studio apartment, and it looks like that's gonna be what you guys have. Are you okay with that as long as he's passionate about it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
totally.
Good to know.
Yeah.
No, good to know.
I mean, honestly,
So,
it's about his heart and like his relationship with Christ.
okay.
That will come eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be the one helping him to get to that place regardless. So
Okay.
it's not that he has to come with everything laid out on the table. Like I'm also bringing him my gifts, and it's a partnership, right?
So, she can probably talk about that a little bit later, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So what do you think those guys are looking for? So I'm assuming you're in shape, right?
Yeah.
In pretty good shape. Okay. You're taller. You need a taller guy, from what you said, or maybe it's not a deal breaker. And
Yeah.
how long have you been a Christian?
Okay, so I got saved when I was 16, but I lost my way after college. And so I recently just got back with my relationship with Christ. So, and that's been 2 to 3 year process, maybe 4 year.
Okay.
But last 2 years have been really like, I'm all for, like, it's all about my relationship with Christ, and that's where I'm headed.
Cool. So one thing that I try to do is I like to bring reality, but the thing that I like to do different is I also like, some people bring reality and then they never give any advice. And I think she's probably the best person to give advice on that guy that you just described, what he's looking for, and just some practical tips on how you can attract that guy.
Totally.
I don't want to be setting you up
question.
for Maggie I don't want you to be doing a free session or anything here, but any tips that you think that maybe you noticed that was said that, hey, maybe you missed this, or maybe here's a thing to focus on, anything like that?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'm glad you asked about how long she's been a Christian, and it could be, anything. I mean, I'm also a Christian, but I think sometimes it's important. Consistency is so important to men. They look at our track record. It could be your faith. It could be your fitness. It could be your finances. It could be, you see a lot of times, and I'm not saying this is you see a lot of times women go astray in whatever area, and then, okay, now I'm ready. And the men are like, I don't know if I want to take a risk on that, because again, when a man is that house band, that husband, he has to be willing to die for his family. And so we have to make sure that we're worthy of that. So I would ask you, why do you want to, well, one, do you want to be a wife? Why do you want to be a wife? And what kind of wife do you want to be?
Hold on, I'm
Ooh,
gonna have to
those,
write them down. Those are some
ooh,
good questions to ask.
those are really good.
Those are really good
Okay,
questions to ask.
number one, yes, I definitely want to be a wife. Number two, why do I want to be a wife?
Yes.
To expand the kingdom and to be the helpmate for my husband. And three, what kind of wife do I want to be? Oh,
Mhm.
Proverbs 31. Honestly, I have high expectations. So I'm working on myself right now. Like, I really want to be the best wife I can be. Like, I've been fasting and praying and like, really just coming to the Lord with what he wants me to do. Like, I'm really just trying to surrender to the Lord because it's been rough and yeah, there's just a lot. So
I have a question. Do you
yeah.
have a mentor?
Mm.
Oh, I do. I have several. Yeah,
Are
but
they
they're
old?
moving out of state to Tennessee.
Are they older women?
One is not. She's like the same age as me, but she's been married for like 10 years. I do have like, obviously my in-laws are mentors to me and my sister-in-law. I can't really think of anybody like much older though, and that's actually why I've been trying to seek out church community, because I really need that like older mentorship, or like having a woman that can speak counsel over me, because that's something that I haven't really had.
I would recommend looking for a wife whose husband is really happy. Mark Driscoll, a pastor down in Arizona, says, guys, if you want a mentor, find a guy whose wife is happy and his children are happy. That's the guy you need to be mentored by. And I would say find an older woman that her husband looks like he's happy. He's not like, yeah, honey, I'll do what you said. Like, where he's just kind of like just fulfilling his role every day. But someone that actually, he's like, I have the best wife in the world. You know, even my wife has a mentor. And so, and we're already married. And
Even
so,
Zach has mentors.
and I have a mentor.
A
So,
couple.
a few, yeah. And so, it's definitely something that I would advise, if she wasn't going to advise it already, that's probably someone that's been where you're trying to go,
Okay.
or is where you're trying to go.
I really like that advice. I did have one curious question. Oh, I've asked many people this and have researched it, but what's your take on approaching a man? Or is it better just to smile and then have him approach?
Wow. So if that question is for me, and again, I'm an older woman and I'm a throwback, I would probably never approach a man, but I would let him know that I'm interested by the way that I carry myself, eye contact. I just think we've lost the art of flirting. I think you can definitely let a man know that you're interested, compliment him. Again, your network, find out if he's, single, maybe drop your virtual handkerchief, but to just cold approach a man, I know some women do it, but I never would. I understand today the dating landscape has changed, but I think you start the way that you finish. And if you don't want to be out in front in the relationship, I think you let the man lead. If he's interested, the masculine men that I know, they go for what they want. So you need to become what those men want. If nothing else, they'll approach you out of curiosity and just kind of, find out what's the story here. Then you have your opportunity. But I think if you just are kind of like, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but if you just sit back and you're like, well, I hope somebody notices me, it's not going to happen like that. So you want to definitely stand out.
I heard somebody on a live. I don't know who it was. Chris, I think you were on the live with me when there was a lady that was describing a way to let men know that she's interested without actually pursuing. So it was a college example. And she said, why don't you bake this guy some cookies, bring the cookies to his place and say, hey, baked you some cookies, thought you may like them. And if you ever want to run the calories off, let me know. I'm in this room over here, you know, and then that way it's kind of like letting them know the door's open without saying, I'm asking you out on a date and pursuing them.
That's cute.
It ain't
I like that.
always got to be as like, I think people over kind of think that whole aspect of just approaching people and getting to know people, right? It doesn't always have to be as deep as people like you see on the romantic comedies, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just like you just come up with an excuse and just start talking, right? Like just, hey man, like this is my first time going to this church. How long have you been here? Yada yada yada. And then if something forms, then great. Like, you know, that's just getting to know somebody. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, hey, how you doing? Can I have your number? Like, it's not, it doesn't always have to be kind of like that. Just make good conversation and have a good time. And if it flows, then let it flow, you know?
I agree. I think soft skills and just conversation skills have become a lost art. That natural curiosity about people, all of the things that you would say at a cocktail party, you know, any new restaurants you've been to lately, any places you've traveled to, what, you know, how do you like to spend your free time? There's nothing wrong with just getting to know people because you never know, even if it's not a love match with them, they may know someone, but that keeps your skills kind of sharpened. And like I was saying in the beginning, like a lot of women just do whatever they want to do and then they meet the one and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm not prepared now, what do I do? And it's too late.
But like you said, become what the man that you want to get is like desires, right? I think a lot of like, you know, women be like, oh, you know, I want a man of God, I want a husband and stuff, and then, you know, we go to your page and you always in the club, and it's like, come on, man, like, and you may look good, you may look great, but it's like, how am I supposed to take you seriously? And not saying you can't go enjoy yourself, but if that's what you're posting consistently, right?
Mhm.
You're just not giving me that vibe, right? That you want to be married, that you're ready, right? That you've done the work mentally, spiritually, emotionally to become a wife, right? So if you want to be that, if you want to be what they desire, you gotta be that. You gotta show that. You gotta move like that. Utilize social media, right? Take some nice pictures, do whatever you gotta do, right? But make sure, man, when that guy, that man of God or whatever, even randomly comes across your profile, he's like, man, she's checking the boxes just in my head, right? Now I can approach because now, you know, you made some videos online, you seem approachable, you talk about purpose, you're operating in your purpose. It's like, okay, like I'm feeling this, right? Versus doing whatever, and it's like, nah, like we just wouldn't cross paths,
And
you know?
it sounds to me like you're actually taking the self-analysis seriously. And like I said, I think the next step is just getting a mentor, finding people that are in happy marriages that you want to be in. And if you can't find them, I know Maggie follows, and she probably posts people and could probably send you some people, or she could probably, I don't want to say she's going to do something if she didn't commit to it, but I would say reach out to her. She'd probably really be able to help.
Totally.
Sure.
I like that. I also, I think maybe this is a good question for others watching, but how do you prepare yourself or become the woman that you, I don't want to say should be becoming, but that the men that you want are seeking? And how do you know what they are seeking?
Well, again, if that question is for me, you said yourself you wanted to be a Proverbs 31 woman. You know, what is she? She, you know, minds the house, her children, you know, her rise up to meet her, you know, are you well spoken of? Are you, you know, how do you use your time? Are you just idly, you know, scrolling? Are you productive? Do people see you volunteering? I would say know what that is and then measure yourself honestly and take an assessment and say, okay, I'm strong in these areas. These are the areas I have to work on, and maybe even prioritize that. You can't do everything all at once. So I think there's a certain amount of just becoming a woman of good character, a godly woman, however, you say that, that's important to you. Okay. And then, for the men, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking, but I think we need to watch and study. I think men have been studying women a lot longer than we just kind of been like going through life like it's just going to happen. Men know, okay, this type of woman, she likes this, she moves this way, and they act accordingly. They make sure they get, the 5-bedroom house in the suburbs or whatever the woman of their dreams is going to require. So I think we have to put in the work and socialize with those kind of men, whether it's at church or network or whatever. And I would ask them, if you find a man who brags about his wife and says, man, I'm telling you, she is just a rock star, ask him, can we have a cup of coffee? I just want to pick your brain. You seem really happy. What is it? How did you know? What did you see? How did you become this success? I just think that we don't put in the work into relationships that we do in other areas. You're a professional, I think you said, in sports, media, or whatever it is. You didn't just wake up and become that. You worked every day, got better, got feedback, and say, okay, I need to do that better. Went back in, networked, interviewed, all the work that you did. You've got to do that same effort for the relationship. It's not going to just happen. So that's what I would offer.
I would say, and obviously just from my biased opinion, right? Like, definitely a woman that's, I think it's understood, being into the word, right? Having a certain type of foundation with the word, believing the same, things foundationally, but also the willingness to grow, right? And it's spiritually, right? I think that's really important. You see a lot of women, that may be on a certain level, but they're not willing to, take constructive criticism, willing to learn. And that's in all aspects, right? Spiritually, mentally, physically, just a willingness to say, okay, how can we make each other better, right? Because at the end of the day, that type of man, he's looking for a helpmate. He's looking for a partner. How are you going to, and I'm not talking about what do you bring into the table, but how are you going to add to the vision, to the life, right? So can you follow? Can you add to it? Can you sharpen him on certain areas, right? Can you give them maybe a new perspective, right? Are you emotionally intelligent, right? So one thing I look for is, do you operate on principles and not on your emotions, right? I know emotions is a very, touchy thing, especially, with women, unfortunately, but because I'm seeing, are you just always emotionally driven, or do you live based on the principles, especially the principles of the Bible, versus just, this is how I'm feeling, it is what it is, right? And how do we see that as men? We see that on, physically, right? Do you work out when you don't feel like working out, right? I get it. We don't always feel like working out, but do you still say, hey, I'm still going to get it in, right? Do you choose to address me in a respectful manner, even though you may be pissed at me right now, right? So for me, one of my rules,
that's probably the biggest, I would
that's
say.
a huge
As a man,
I know
as
that's
a married
huge
man,
because look,
that's the biggest. That will set you apart. If you can master that,
yes,
that will set you apart from everyone else.
And that's what men are looking for, right? That top tier type of man, he's looking for, okay, especially, I know for me, I've never picked a bad woman, right? Like all of men have been good women. So how do you separate yourself? So that's what we're looking for. Even with these good Christian women, how are you going to separate yourself to say, man, this is different? Like the way she moves, the way she thinks, how she operates. Is she purpose driven? Is she just focused on all the glitz and glamour of having a big wedding and wearing the red bottoms and all this stuff? Or is she about purpose? Not saying those things are bad, but are you focused, right? I think those are just, a couple of things just off the top of my head, right? And even how you carry yourself, right? Like, do you take time in not that you have to have makeup 24/7, but do you take care of how you look? Do you take care of your body? Are you trying to be the best version of yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially? And if we can see that, if we can see fruit and evidence of all those things, right? And you can see that you have a kind heart, that you can be a great wife, right? That you can get along with our families, and then we can, join and create another family. And one thing is extremely important, I know for me, and I think Zach can attest to this. You always have to remember, at the end of the day, it's you and your husband. Y'all were on the same team, period. It ain't your mom, it ain't your sister, it ain't X, Y, and Z. It's you and him on the same team. So y'all need to be, whether it's just effective communication, having those rules in the relationship, being on the same page of the vision of what we are trying to do. We have to be on that same page with that, because it says even the word, a house divided is going to fall. So we have to make sure we're okay before anybody else is okay, right? So those are just little
I mean, you're
things that I think.
walking her through you're walking her through the dating, the relationship, the marriage, how to make the marriage last.
Hey,
Everything.
I'm just trying to give you nuggets. I'm just trying to, hey, and this for everybody on there. Take it as, take it how you see
No,
fit.
I agree. That's definitely solid. And like I said, my wife has a virtual mentor. Technology's great. So if you don't have anyone in your community, you can always send me a DM and send her a DM. And if she isn't busy and she doesn't already have her clients filled, I could recommend you to some other people too. So
Totally.
there's probably people in the chat right now that are being mentored by her. So I appreciate you coming on and
Thank you.
asking those questions. It was really good questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was really cool.
Yeah.
I
No
really
problem. Appreciate
Good luck. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
definitely. Bye.
Bye.